Okay. All right. So what I want to do now is get started on tonight's uh, theme. And we're using these slides from the Prosperity Now uh, website. This is something they put together about 3 years ago. It has not yet been updated. So for the first couple ones, I'm just going to have to be very careful that there's nothing that's out of the ordinary. What we're doing here is just going to go over the intake and the interview process and the quality review, sort of some basic building blocks of what we do at VITA. There's 10 modules. They're on the Prosperity Now website. Prosperity Now is an advocacy group based in Washington. They're really into advocating for people that are basically in our cohort, the working poor. They're all about income equality and expanding refundable tax credits, things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to review the intake process, go over the volunteer standards of conduct. Again, get prepared, take the actual volunteer standards of conduct test. We'll go over the quality site requirements, the IRS certification process, and then getting ready to actually take that test. Okay, these are the outlines of what's in this module. Again, this is all available if you want to take a look at this after we're done as well. Okay, VITA Basics. These are the 6 golden rules. Pretty much if you get up to speed on this, we're all going to have a lot of fun this year. Number 1 is to use the intake form, and we'll review what that looks like in a little bit. Maintain the standards of conduct. I mean, again, we're only as good as our volunteers who are at the site and meeting with our clients. Get used to talking to the taxpayer, engaging them in the process. Not only is it fun, but it's how you do a thorough and accurate tax return. Know what you're doing. This is very key. Stay in scope of what you're certified to do. If you only have the basic certification, you got to make sure that you're only doing a basic tax return. And there's other things within that too. We'll get into that a little bit more, and have everything double checked. Everything is always double checked. I've been doing this for 10 years. I have all my stuff checked. And that's how, we keep things on the up and up. And we, again, when you have questions or there's concerns, we have lots of resources. We have the Pub 17, which is very similar to the IRS publication 4012, only it's a lot thicker and it goes into a lot more detail. Sometimes that's needed. And you use your volunteer buddies. I found since I got involved with this that you learn by the folks that you're working with, and a collaborative effort works to everyone's advantage. Okay, the IRS certification requirements. Again, everybody, no matter if they're just a greeter or an intake person, must pass the volunteer standards of conduct, the ethics test. It's just a 10-question test. You must do something on your level as far as the tax preparation goes, and anybody who is going to look at tax documents needs to take the intake and interview certification. So pretty much everybody's always going to be looking at documents, and this just kind of shows the IRS that everyone has at least taken that test alone. They may not be doing the return, but they are looking at documents and trying to make some sense out of them. All right, there are 2 main levels of certification: basic and advanced, and there is a third for military. We have a few gentlemen who do the military certification. A lot has to do with how income and rental properties handled if they are on duty active duty overseas. We don't see a lot of military returns, but we have the capability to do them if we have to. Staying with scope. Okay, the site, again, not only is there's scope within like what you can do as far as your level of certification, but there's also a level of scope of what we can do as a VITA site. Certain things we just will not do is Schedule E rental income, things like innocent spouse relief, installment sales income, gains and losses from different contract straddles and things like that. It's another good one. Oh, mortgage interest credit. There's a lot of weird stuff that may pop up. Again, we don't do any of that. The main thing that we see as far as scope is staying within our income level. We don't want to do anything much beyond our stated top of $65,000 per household income. Now, that's somewhat of a soft top, as I've explained in the past, that given the fact that if a couple is married filing jointly and they each have Social Security and they both have a modest state pension, that could very easily get to $70,000 or $80,000. And for that, that's not exactly rich in this part of the world. And the fact that it's only a few documents, we'll go ahead and do that. They generally are seniors. So that most of their income is going to be tax-free for the state of New Jersey anyway. So it's a pretty straightforward return. We do want to avoid a lot of folks that have complicated Schedule Ds, that's be capital gains issues. But again, if they come in and they're within the income bracket, we have to take them. Again, making sure that you have your proper level of certification, and we'll get into how returns are given to a tax preparer based on that. Okay, make sure you know what you're doing. Only prepare tax returns within the scope of your certification and on topics you're comfortable with. Don't guess. If anything you're uncomfortable with, just raise your hand, ask for help. The software isn't going to do this magically to make this right for you. I mean, it will do the math, but again, if it's garbage in, it'll be garbage out. And you got to realize that what you do is going to have impact people's lives. I encourage folks, if you're looking at something right away and it doesn't make sense, put the hand up right away, or call the site coordinator off, or ask a fellow tax preparer, like what this might mean. And it's always a good that's always a good teachable moment. Sometimes we get some stuff that's way out of left field, and we can all learn together, and then we kind of share that amongst ourselves, and then you get to apply that when it inevitably will come up again. Okay, the quality site requirements ensure quality and accuracy of the tax return. They're required to be communicated to all volunteers and partners to ensure that IRS and the partner mutual objectives are met. Again, prior to working there, you have to be certified annually. You have to use the intake review process. You have to confirm photo ID and the tax identification numbers. Reference materials need to be on site. Volunteer agreements. Okay, when you actually finish taking the test, you're required to get a digital signature, print it off, email it to me. We keep copies at every site, as well as sending a copy to the IRS. And quality QSR 6 is timely filing of the tax returns. So the idea was when we're done, we get those off. We file those as soon as possible, usually within 24 hours. 7, again, we are obligated to follow the law for the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And 8 and 9 are really on me to make sure that where you're working, that the site identification number is linked correctly to the electronic filing identification number. And that's all within the TaxWise software that I will be setting up in the coming month. And number 10, security. Again, we do not maintain any client documents once they're finished. The only thing that we keep is the 8879. That's the e-file authorization. At the end of the day, the intake form, all of their tax documents, as well as a copy of their return, goes back to the client, and we just keep the e-file authorization. That's it. Okay, volunteer standards of conduct. Okay, you must adhere to the volunteer standards of conduct. There are 10. That's following the 10 quality site requirements that I just went over. You do not accept payment, solicit donations, or accept refund payments for federal state tax return preparation. We will occasionally, it happens to me every year, someone is very happy with our service and wants to give me a $20 tip. Of course, can't take that. It's very sweet. It's generally they're very sincere about it, but that's not why we're there. And I obviously encourage them to make a donation to, if we're at the Boys and Girls Club, if they like the Boys and Girls Club, make a donation to the Boys and Girls Club or Salvation Army or the United Way or charity of their choice. We do not solicit business from taxpayers. You assist or use that knowledge to direct anybody else for that benefit. The main one which always comes up is if you're doing a return for someone who indicates that they did not have health insurance, and it turns out that your brother-in-law happens to sell health insurance, and you tell your brother-in-law that Mr. Smith, who I did his taxes today, doesn't have health insurance. Here's his number. That's violating the volunteer standards of conduct. That's a big no-no. Obviously, we do not knowingly prepare false returns. We do not engage in criminal, infamous, dishonest, notoriously disgraceful conduct, blah, blah, blah. That makes perfect sense. Obviously, that kind of stuff will have a negative impact on the program. We treat all taxpayers professional, courteous, and respectful manner. Again, this is all common sense stuff. But again, it's just, it kind of reinforces, our position within the community. These are all the other reference materials. We will have a lot of this stuff on site, and we'll be getting familiar with this as we go through the process. When you take the test for the volunteer standards of conduct, you got to get, there are 10 questions. You only can get 2 wrong. You do get 2 chances to do it. Okay, now we're going to the intake process. Understand how to conduct the taxpayer intake using Form 13614, and know that documents are required. Take the form. Understand the importance of having a Social Security and ITIN. Again, all of this, you really need, you can't be short any of this. It all has to be kind of a uniform process. Okay, what is the intake process? It'll ensure that your return is within scope of the VITA program. So in other words, once someone is sitting down at a site and starts filling out the intake, and then we review it, we should be able to see, based on what they've indicated, whether or not we can do that return or not. And we can also determine what level of certification is needed to prepare that return. Verify all the identity documents. Again, they got their driver's license and they've got all the W-2s, etc. We go through the entire intake form together. And then we'll explain to them what's next, which is that now you're going to go sit down with a tax preparer. Okay, client intake. What is Form 13614? Okay, this is the form where we're going to capture information. We're going to transfer it from the form to the tax return via the tax software. Again, the tax form, again, it must be completed by everyone. It is available in 11 languages. However, we only have copies of it in Spanish available. And most importantly, it is there are no exceptions. Everyone uses the 13614. What I'd like to do now too is show you here this is the 13614. Again, it's pretty straightforward. The top of the page 1 is, all their personal information, first name, last name, always a phone number. Have to have a phone number from everybody, and this has to be transferred to the tax software. It's the only way we can get in contact with people if there is a problem. Their mailing address, again, the date of birth, very important, because again, all of this links, proper spelling of their name, the date of birth, and their Social Security number is how they're known within the IRS. Again, were they permanently or totally disabled? Were they a student? Were they legally blind? All of that is important because it may impact the level of their refund based on their current status. Can anyone claim them or their spouse as a dependent? Again, have they been issued? This question 11 is an important one, because some people get some people get that confused with yeah, I've had my ID stolen, and is that what that means? It's like, no, not really. What it means is their social was flagged by the IRS, and they should have received a letter with a 6-digit PIN, and they need to use that to file their return. And hang on, folks. I'll get to your questions in a minute. Okay. Sorry. Oops. There we go. If they don't have that, what they could wind up doing is oh, sorry. There we go. Can you see my screen now, folks? No, you can't. No, we're okay. second here.
Just see the PowerPoint so far.
Okay, yeah, well, let me get that back on there. I lost the screen. There we go.
Thank you.
There we go. All right, now we're back. Sorry about that. Anyway, so as we go through all of this, I was talking about the ID PIN. We've had a number of folks who come in, they don't know that they are somehow in the program, and they can't come up with it. And it's a real pain to retrieve that. They have to make the call. I can't do it for them. And it can really slow things down. Even sometimes you can get away with doing a paper return, but even then, sometimes it comes back saying they want proof that you are who they say you are. Again, any kind of issue involving identity of a client's identity is generally something that they're going to have to do themselves. They're going to have to call the IRS and sort this out. We can do some other things, try and help them, but at the end of the day, this is something that they're going to have to do. Marital status is very important. We'll get into that in the next session as far as married, divorced, widowed, head of household, etc. And of course, now we got a list of dependents, and we'll get into that, how that works on the next lesson as well. Now, page 2, as you can see here, this is a lot of material. A lot of people look at this and they go, oh my God, all I got is a W-2. So they'll click yes for box 1. And maybe if they had more than one jobs, they'll write over here, they had 3. Okay, so now you know I have to have 3 W-2s. So before you sit down, in front of a tax preparer, they should have the W-2s out of their envelopes and ready to go. The rest of these, we'll get through this as we go through the income session, but you can see there's B's and A's. B's means it's a basic level, A is advanced. Again, most of our stuff is basically going to be wages, unemployment compensation, Social Security, and potentially some retirement income, generally limited to people who have a state pension, or maybe they took some money out of an IRA. Again, in this day and age, the only people that we see that get a pension are state employees. We will see some other folks down the road with interest and dividends and cash income, self-employment, and we'll get into that at a later date. The third page is some other things about, do you want to contribute to the presidential election fund? All of this is kind of, not that well, it's not like we're keeping this data for anything, but what we do use here is in this free text area to add things like a bank account information, to write your routing and account number. Also, what we use for in New Jersey to put the rent amount in there. And they might want to write in here, if they haven't already written it down on a piece of paper, some of their out-of-pocket medical expenses. And we'll get into that as well once we get into the expenses. Page 4, again, is just a signature. And we need all that. And then we can move on to present that to a tax preparer. So let me just, let's go back here. I'll find the other one. Okay. Oh, I jumped down here. Let me go back. Sorry about that. I'm sorry. Did I get your question there? Sadaf? You have a question? I didn't see it.
No, we're good. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. All right.
I'm sorry, I forgot to remove that.
No, that's all right. It's all right. Okay. So we just went through what the form looked like. Again, it's the taxpayer's responsibility to make sure it is complete and accurate. But it's our, it behooves us to again work with them to make sure that they understand. Again, a lot of times I'll see people who they'll check that checkbox where it says W-2, and then they'll take literally a line and go down no, all the other ones. And again, that shows like maybe they didn't put a lot of thought in it, but chances are that's probably accurate. But it's always worth a call when or a conversation. You look them right in the face and you say, "Are you sure there's nothing else? There's no unemployment. You didn't, a shoebox full of 20s didn't fall from the sky. There's nothing out there that I need to be aware of. And again, if there's like, yeah, absolutely fine, then again, we've done our due diligence. Yeah, ID documents, okay, they need to have original photo ID, could be driver's license, state issue ID, military, school ID even. We do see folks with passports bring their passport in. Again, if it's married filing joint, I need to see both. Social Security card. They should bring the original, and this says or copies of the Social Security card. We generally don't do that. I mean, again, this is not something that I put together. We usually want to see the actual card. And the one thing you want to like focus on the card is because the card is how it's going to be known to the IRS. If you go by what's on the intake form, they may use Bill instead of William, or Lizzie instead of Elizabeth. You get my point? And that can cause a reject. So that's why you always got to check, how is it spelled on the Social Security card? It's very problematic sometimes with a lot of Hispanic surnames where there are two last names, and the husband and wife, they could be completely different, as could some of the children. So again, we get tricked on that regularly. And it's an easy fix, but unfortunately what it is you got to call the client, and that just slows the whole system down. Okay, ITIN letter, again, and they should have again, if they are ITIN holders, they should have a letter. It's actually a very formal looking document. They don't get a card necessarily. We need to see that. Usually they have that with them. And at the end of the day, this exception here, we can be flexible. Mostly that it's generally people will come in, they see me, they see all of our tax preparers, they know us, they've been coming for years. If they don't have their Social Security number or their ITIN, it's up to the site coordinator to determine whether we can continue. Generally, we are. I mean, my policy is an 80-year-old woman who took 2 buses to come to our site, and all she has is Social Security and a small pension. I'm not going to not do a return because she doesn't have her card. It's just common sense. People who are new, who are unfamiliar with VITA, and particularly if they have multiple children, I need to see all the cards first time out of the blocks, because that's where mistakes can happen. Again, I try to encourage people. It's like, okay, I'm going to let you go this time, but please make it a point next year to bring it with you. Okay, again, use the form for every return, use it correctly. We're going to need all that through the process. Check IDs, check Social Security cards. Again, check with the site coordinator if there's any issues with the IDs. Okay, now we go to the client interview. Okay, understand how to conduct the interview with the taxpayer. Again, talk to the taxpayer. Okay, you want to do, when they sit down with you, you open up the intake form, you take a look at it, you greet them by their name, you see what was checked off, what their documents are. Make sure, again, if I'm a basic and I see a printout from Uber, that means we're going to have to do a Schedule C. That may mean I can't do it. And again, that whole process too can that interaction with them can provide more, get to a chance to provide you with more information. That they could say, well, this the reason I'm doing this is because of this or that. And again, that's where you can avoid problems in the first place. Again, if the client is missing items, consult on with the site coordinator on what to do. Again, if you don't understand a particular item, please get someone's attention. It may be out of scope, or maybe they didn't quite word it correctly. Again, you want to discuss all the issues, ask follow-up questions, give the taxpayer your full attention. Assume that you do assume the taxpayer wants to provide the correct tax information. I mean, I always tell them that it's like everything that you give me, the IRS already has. And if there's something that you don't have that the IRS has, that could kick out a problem when they do what's called the match in June. And that's important for everybody to understand that, all we're doing is reconciling documents that you have with what the IRS has and making adjustments if the opportunity arises. Okay, talking to them and handling discrepancies. Yeah, sometimes it may not be straightforward. Like I said, most of our stuff, it usually is, but it's the ones that, that aren't, that drag things down. That's where things can drag on, where it should have taken 30 minutes. Now you work with someone for an hour, and that's where things can get a little hairy. Okay, talking to the taxpayer, once we're done, you're talking to them, and maybe, at the end of the day, turns out that they owe. And they go, oh yeah, I know, I'm in a payment plan, I'm having problems with it. Or again, I've got sometimes they'll have letters with them too. Maybe they've been in an installment agreement and they've missed payments. Maybe they've gotten some other issues. Maybe they haven't received last year's refund for whatever reason. Now, there is such thing as called the Low Income Taxpayer Clinic. There is not one in the Trenton area. I think the nearest one is in Edison. And some of those, depending on where they are, they may or may not have Spanish speakers. We try to at least get all the information that we can and give a little bit of guidance. But at the end of the day, they may have to reach out to the IRS themselves. We don't generally do installment agreements when we do a return. My view on that is basically that's their responsibility. We do a return to the best of our ability, as accurate as we can, given the information that we have. And when it's all said and done, the taxpayer, it is their tax return. It is their responsibility to make good on what they may owe the state and the federal government. What else here? A quality review. Okay. Understand how to conduct a thorough quality review. Be prepared. Again, at the end of the day, you're going to want to be able to take the quality review test with the intake and interview. Okay, here we go. Okay, have things double checked. Quality review is a process having a second person look over a tax return before it is signed to make sure the return is accurate and complete. Okay, all returns must be reviewed by someone other than the tax return preparer. And again, quality review must be certified at least at that level or higher. And there's no exceptions. Everything gets double checked. There are, again, even the easy ones, as I've mentioned, like in the introductory video, that if it's just one W-2, you still have a fair amount of data points that have to be entered. And any one of those that's a digit or two transposed or out of place can mean a big problem. And it's a fairly quick check. I mean, for one W-2, you're going to be looking at, the box one, their gross wages, their tax withheld. Same thing for the state. You're going to be looking at, make sure the social security number, their address is correct, the phone number is correct, and it's in the software, and their bank information is correct. That's pretty much it. But again, any one of those can cause a problem. What we'll try and do, at every site, there'll be a designated quality reviewer. Sometimes things get backed up. And what we'll do sometimes is do what's called peer review, where maybe I'm doing one where it's literally one W-2. The preparer next to me is doing another one where it's one W-2, and we finish at the same time, and we'll just review each other's work. Again, it can be it's just a way to try and manage the flow within the site, because you can get very busy and things can get backed up, particularly if if the main reviewer is stuck on something for whatever reason and things are backing up. We try to be as efficient as we can with the personnel that we have. Okay, again, just to reiterate, even if the tax preparer has a lot of experience, it's got to be reviewed. Even if it's simple, even if things are busy, even if it looks like everybody's being inconvenienced, even if it means we can't do more than we would like to, and even if the preparer is a rocket scientist or the tax preparer of the year as voted by the New Jersey Society of CPAs. Again, the last thing we want to do is send people away, but it's a process that we will do if we have to, because we don't want to feel that we're under pressure to get things done. The thing is, at a lot of our sites, we have a lot of seniors, or we have people who maybe took a day off from work to come to get their taxes done. So it may not be convenient for them to come back. And so maybe they're happy waiting. As long as we have access to the site, we'll try and stay as long as we can to clear up all of our work, but sometimes we do have to send them away. Okay, engage the taxpayer in the review process. Again, we may use the 4012 during the review. We may compare information on the intake form, all of this stuff to make sure that we've done things correctly. At the end, we're double checking everything. We explain to the taxpayer that the quality reviewer is going to look things over. You organize the forms, you take the tax documents to the reviewer, you discuss any changes that were made, and you learn from any errors or omissions. A lot of times, if I'm doing a review and I see that the preparer did something pretty a pretty big error, pretty big boo-boo, I try to bring them over, and the three of us will say, I just want to show what we did here so that, we can all learn. We're all learning on this. We all make mistakes, but the reason we have all of these folks involved is so that the mistake is caught before we hit the send button. Again, once we hit the send button, there's not a whole lot I can do to pull that back. You just can't. You have to then do an amended return if there's a problem. There we go. Again, the review takes place after it's been returned and the software error message has been resolved. Once the preparer has all the information in, they'll run a diagnostic, and some things may pop up, and they should fill in those errors. For instance, a very common one is you run the diagnostic and it says there's a refund is the client is getting a refund, but there's no bank information. So that's when you can re-engage the client again and say, do you have any bank account information? If the client says, no, I just want to check, just go ahead, fine. There could be other things that are missing, and then you need to kind of work through that to make sure all of those discrepancies are dealt with before you move on. Again, everyone's in the same area when you're doing the review. Again, the last thing you want to tell somebody is like, okay, I've reviewed your return, we're ready to go, but at the end of the day, this is your return. We've done this based on what you've told us and the information you've given us. When things are printed off and we've discussed everything, they sign the return, and away they go. Again, just to reiterate, the only thing we keep is the e-file signature authorization. That's it. Again, it's basically a 10-point quality review. Again, you look over the intake, you ask clarifying questions, you make sure everything looks, that we got the correct filing status, you ensure everything's spelled correctly, all the incomes reported, there's any adjustments were done, you determine that all the credits are correctly claimed, make sure that the deposit information is there. Again, if there were any errors, you understand that where they did change, you give everything a once over, and away you go. Okay. Again, key things to remember: use the intake for every return. It's the only way to go. Talk to the taxpayer. The form, the paper doesn't speak for itself. And again, talking to the taxpayer, this really is the fun part. That's where you can you learn a lot during this process by chatting them up. And they like to talk to us too. They're more than happy to sit with us. Again, make sure you stay in your certification. Don't guess, and make sure. But at the end of the day, you know that you're going to get quality checks, so it's good that way. Okay, so that is sort of like the intake, review, etc. process. I'm going to stop the recording right now. Let me see that. What did I do? About that. There we go.